Hi Karis kids! We are the Eschenbaugh. My name is Mary. This is Brandon. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you are able to watch this video with your parents or maybe your brothers and your sisters. It's a really good story and we want your whole family to be a part of hearing it so you can talk about it. We are going to be reading from the Jesus Storybook Bible. We're reading the story The Forgiving Prince. And this is based on Genesis 37 through 46. So that's a lot of chapters, but maybe if you're feeling up to it, you could get your Bible out and look that story up, and you could read a part of it with your mom or your dad or your brothers and sisters. The story, The Forgiving Prince, is all about God's mercy and His grace. And we learn about this through the story of Joseph and his brothers.
The Forgiving Prince. Jacob had 12 sons, but of all of his sons, Joseph was his favorite. One day, Jacob gave Joseph a splendid new robe. It was beautiful and rich with all the colors of the rainbow, but it made Joseph's brothers jealous. They wanted rich rainbow robes too. Then, to make matters worse, Joseph kept on having these special dreams. "I dreamt I was the greatest. I was king," Joseph told his brothers, "and you all bowed down to me." Now I'm sure you know, even if Joseph didn't, that telling your brothers things like that isn't a very good idea. Joseph's brothers hated him even more. They wanted to kill Joseph and his dreams. And one day, that's exactly what they tried to do. They tore Joseph's rainbow robe off him and sold him to slave traders for 20 pieces of silver. The traders took Joseph to Egypt and made him into a slave. The brothers went home and lied to their father, telling him that Joseph was dead. That's the end of that dreamer, they thought. But they were wrong. God had a magnificent dream for Joseph's life, and even when it looked like everything had gone wrong, God would use it all to help make the dream come true. God would use everything that was happening to Joseph to do something good. Meanwhile, though, things were not looking good for Joseph in Egypt. He was far from home and from his dad. Then he got blamed for something he didn't do. And even though he had done nothing wrong, he was punished and thrown in jail. But God had not left Joseph. One night, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had a scary dream about thin cows gobbling up fat cows. What on earth did it mean? He didn't know, but Joseph was a dream expert, so Pharaoh sent for him. "It means a famine is coming," Joseph explained. "There won't be enough food." Pharaoh was so pleased by Joseph's skill that he immediately took Joseph out of jail and made him a prince. Now back home, Joseph's brothers had run out of food, and everyone was hungry. God's special family was in danger. If they didn't get food soon, they would starve to death. So Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt to buy food. They came and knelt before the new prince. His brothers didn't know that the prince was Joseph, but Joseph knew who they were. Joseph's dream, the one about his brothers bowing down to him, was coming true. "It's me," Joseph cried. When they saw it was Joseph, his brothers were afraid. They had wronged Joseph. They had sinned, and they knew it. Now Joseph would certainly punish them. But Joseph looked at his brothers, and his eyes filled with tears. Even though his brothers had hurt him and hated him and wanted him dead, in spite of everything, he couldn't stop loving them. His heart, which they had broken, filled up with love, and Joseph forgave them. Joseph threw his arms around them. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Behind what you were doing, underneath everything that was happening, God was doing something good. God was making everything right again." Joseph didn't punish them. He rescued them. He brought God's special family to live safely with him in Egypt. One day, God would send another prince, a young prince whose heart would break, Like Joseph, he would leave his home and his father. His brothers would hate him and want him dead. He would be sold for pieces of silver. He would be punished, even though he had done nothing wrong. But God would use everything that happened to this young prince, even the bad things, to do something good, to forgive the sins of the whole world. Thanks for listening to the story. In the story, we learned that Joseph shows mercy to his brothers. Joseph was appointed prince of Egypt by God, and when his brothers came to receive food because they were hungry, he showed them mercy because although they had done wrong against Joseph, they had treated him in a way that he did not deserve. Joseph found love for his brothers and within himself. And because of that, he went on to forgive his brothers. He showed them mercy because although they deserved to be punished because they had done wrong against Joseph, he decided to love them and forgive them. And he showed them grace because he had invited them into the protection of Egypt under his authorities, where they could receive all the food and protection.
So this story is a picture of grace and mercy that Joseph shows to his brothers, but it also points us to an even better prince, an even more perfect picture of grace and mercy, and that's fulfilled in Jesus. And why I love this story so much, why it's so encouraging to my heart, is because Jesus does not withhold one thing from his brothers and sisters. In the Bible, it talks about Jesus inheriting God's kingdom, and he inherits all the good gifts from God. And when we trust and believe in Jesus, we also inherit all of those good things that God bestows onto his most beloved Son. And that's such an encouragement, and it's not based on what we do, because we deserve punishment because we sin, and that takes us far away from God. But Jesus, he's the mediator, he's the bridge, and he brings us close to God, and that can be such an encouragement to our hearts. And we can think, sometimes we are not kind to our brothers and sisters, and sometimes we fight and we get mad and we get angry, but we can know that in Jesus, when we ask him to forgive us, that he does, and that he brings us closer to God. And so when we have moments of sin, we know that we can pray and ask Jesus to forgive us and to heal our hearts, and he'll do that. So this is such a good picture and reminder of what Jesus does for us.
As sinners, the Bible tells us that we all deserve punishment, just like Joseph's brothers deserved. But that's not what God does to us. God shows us grace. God shows us mercy, and we inherit all the promises that the Bible talks about. God blesses us with eternal blessings.
And so this story can be a reminder to look to Jesus, to fix our eyes on him and the good work that he has done in bringing us into the kingdom and the fold when we trust in him.